Hello, my name is Eric K. Thomas, and I am the editor-in-chief of the Quintessential Gentleman. And today we are speaking to Philip Smith, who is the CEO and founder of NAAGA, not MAGA, NAAGA, National African American Gun Association. Mr. Smith, how you feeling today?
Good, man. Good. Glad to be here and honored to talk to you, man.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you for being here. I'm telling you, I had to put that disclaimer when I was telling, friends and trying to talk to my teammates. I was like, yeah, I'm about to interview President of NAGA. They said, wait, what? So,
No, no. I'll leave it at that. No, that's not us.
at all. So please tell us, what is the National African American Gun Association?
The National African Gun Association is a group organized for the benefit of African Americans to learn how to shoot and handle a firearm. Everything from A to Z: how to hold a gun, which gun is good for you, which caliber, learning how to stand, muzzle management, every aspect of the firearm education we go over in detail again and again and again. And it's a lifetime pursuit of getting better and better. Our focus is specifically on the African American community nationally. That's every city, every state, where there are African Americans that have a need or a desire to learn about firearms based on their own personal situation they might be in. We have a significant amount of women, African American women, but we also have a lot of men as well. And we have been growing at about 1,000 new members every month, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but on average about 1,000 new members from all over the country: Maine, Maryland, Connecticut, the Carolinas, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, you name it. We're getting members coming in from all over the country, and we're all saying the same thing. Hey, Phil. Hey, NAGA. I want to join your organization because I want to learn how to shoot a firearm to protect myself, my family, and just as important, my loved ones. And that's how the growth of the organization has went from myself founding it in 2015, February 28th, in honor of Black History Month, until now, where we have roughly about 40,000 members nationwide. We even have a few members in Asia, Africa. We have a following in Ghana, and as well as Europe. So we're focused 99 and 9 cents here in the U.S., but we do have people that just want to support the organization that live elsewhere.
Interesting, interesting. So before we even get to that, what inspired you to start NAGA?
Man, I was working at another company, and I had two guys um, bugging me, literally bugging me. Hey, Phil, we're going to the gun range on Saturday. It was like a Monday,
Mhm.
and then my initial reaction was like, "Nah, I don't. I'd rather go play some basketball or do something. Do something. I'm gonna have some fun." And she go, "Man, you're gonna have a lot of fun. Why don't you come?" And they literally bothered me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. By Thursday, I was like, "Look, man, I'll go. I'll be there." So I just give up. I gave up. I gave in.
Right.
So on Saturday morning, 9:30, I'm there signing my disclaimer waiver forms, going through the safety briefing, and I started shooting. And I'm gonna tell you, man, I had so much fun. I literally stayed there about 3.5 hours.
Wow.
Shot everything: AKA 47, AR, 9 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 380. Everything. Shotgun. And I sat there at the end of the day and I said, man, I had a lot of fun. And I said to myself, excluding the guys, I said, I think I might come back next week just for myself to see if this is really something I'm having a good time with. So fast forward next week, I'm there at 9:30 again, and I'm shooting. I sat there probably another 4 hours and had a better time. And that's when everything stopped and went into slow motion. And I said, if you can have this much fun, other African Americans can have this much fun. Your people can have this fun.
So you didn't grow up with guns. You
Oh
were
no,
your first time, and what year
no.
was that?
I was born. I'm in Atlanta, but I was born and raised in Vallejo, California, Northern
Okay,
Cali.
right.
Um, we call South Side of Vallejo, kind of rough area, rough neighborhood, but we made do. It was a close knit community. We all loved each other, hung out, but we were poor.
Wow.
But guns weren't a part of my reality because the only time we saw a gun coming up with somebody, they're gonna rob somebody or
Yeah,
they're gonna do something, they're gonna do some dirt.
yeah.
So I stayed away from guns. And just to let you know, you probably already know this, California for the most part is I'm not gonna say anti-gun state, but they make it very difficult for you to get a firearm. So they're very resistant to that. So my interaction with firearms was nil. The only thing I was worried about was getting my nice afro and chasing
Right.
girls. I mean that was the goal.
But that's,
And
you think about that when I immediately thought, you started this organization. It was, I've had guns. My dad had guns. I've learned how to shoot, stuff like that. But you really started this organization based off of the likeness of guns and enjoying the sport aspect of it.
And I'll be honest with you, the thing that really brings us all in together as African Americans is the sense of community, the sense of being around other people that look like me, where I can relax to a certain degree and be myself within my own skin. A lot of us don't have that opportunity throughout the U.S. And when we come together, and we come together in large and small groups, it's a sense of fellowship. And you'll hear the term, if you look through our page and some of our stuff on Facebook, you'll see the word fam, our family. We say that a lot, and we mean that. What's up, fam? What's up, family? We're very close knit. We talk to each other about other things other than guns. We talk about family. We talk about how you doing. You okay today, man? How things go last week? We're a very, very close knit organization, and that's why I always say we are the most unique brotherhood and sisterhood in the firearms industry, because we take it beyond just shooting. We take it just beyond going to the range. We have a sense of who we are. And in fact, when you become a member, there's a process we take all of our members to called the NMOC. That's the new members orientation class. Mm-hmm. And in that class, you learn about the history of the Black Arms. You learn about Tuskegee Airmen. You learn about the Harlem Hellfighters. You learn about the Black Panthers of self-defense. You learn about the Deacons of Defense. You learn about all the thousands and literally millions of African Americans, famous and not so famous, that have died for you. And that's why we were able to have this conversation today. So you learn that you're not the first African American to have a gun, nor will you be the last. And that sense of understanding your place in history, I think, puts us far and above any other organization that's out there. Black our way.
Now, this is this is great information. It's interesting because it's definitely a contrast to what I perceived it to be, before doing research or just thinking of someone this particular space. But for me, when I first saw it, it's like, okay, this is the Black version of the NRA, but it's nowhere near that. But I'm interested in knowing, are you a member of the NRA, and what are your thoughts on that organization?
I've never been a member of the NRA. Am I aware of the NRA? Yes, I have to, because I lead the largest African American gun club in the U.S. My feelings toward the NRA are the following. They can do their thing, and we're going to do ours. I always use the analogy of going to the weight room, trying to get in shape. And you walk in the weight room, and you see this huge, muscular guy in the corner. He's just lifting weights. And you can sit there the whole half an hour eating chips and drinking Coke and watching him. Or you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, let's get busy. Let's get ourselves together. I choose to focus on NAAGA for anything from 1 to 10. I just don't believe that anybody has our best interest but us. And we have to do that by focusing on the issues, knowing the issues, and have an understanding as a community, what's the best for all of us together collectively. And for me, I don't spend 1 ounce of my time worrying about any other organization, what they say, what they didn't say, who they support, or who they don't support, because it's a waste of time. They're not giving us any money. They're not giving us any time. They could care less about us. So let's focus on us like I do. And that's the reason why I think the organization has grown to this point where we're getting 1,000 new members every month. We have over 130 chapters, because we all understand, if you're a NAAGA member, we got work to do. So let's put our feet together, put our hands together and get it done. Let's train our brothers. Let's train our sisters. Let's train our kids how to really handle a gun, how to interact with law enforcement, all those good things. And then we've had a series of luck, not a series, but we had a string of luck so far based on a lot of hard work. And I think we have a lot more to do.
So talking about that importance of community, and specifically our community having guns,
right,
do you feel that it is important for our community to own guns?
I think if you look, and this is my own bias, because I am very biased when it comes to that, and that's a very good question because it asks to me a lot. If you look at our history within this country, we are a case study in what not to do when it comes to firearms. Every other community that is strong and every other country that's strong has a level of security and firearms integrated into their fabric of their society. Look at China, look at Israel, look at India, look at the US. All have huge armies. And if you're a country that wants to mess with them, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna leave them alone because they got something for you. Drop that down to on a national level. Look at the communities and the organizations and the ethnic groups that do very, very well here, They all have strong communities, safe communities that have a base of firearms in it. They don't go around with guns a lot in a lot of cases, but if you go in that community and start acting up or causing trouble, they got something for you. But we're the only ones that it's been drilled into our social DNA not to have a firearm. And I believe that's the reason why we are continued to be attacked. The brother that was in South Georgia that went jogging, looking at houses on the weekend, like my wife and I do it. We do this every weekend, literally. Kind of dreaming, saying, "I'm going to get this house and this house." We're just looking. Did what any American did, walked and kept on jogging, but yet he gets attacked. And I just believe that people attack us being African American Black folks, because they know for the most part we don't carry guns. For the most part, we are what I call a soft target. And I did a video about being a soft target versus a hard target. And if you let yourself walk around and being blind to the reality around you, you're setting yourself up to be shot, attacked, or killed. Some of the younger kids, like younger folks your age, kind of say, being 100, being on top of things, understanding the area that you're in. And that's what our folks have the need to start doing on a daily basis. I'm not saying be obsessive with it, but certainly when you walk out the door, think about, okay, is my house secure? Is there anyone outside waiting for me? If I carry a firearm, do I have my gun with me on my hip? Those are the kinds of things we need to start changing, because going the way we're going right now and keep pushing back as a community against guns, we will continue to get shot. We will continue to be attacked. People only mess with people that they can mess with. And that goes for society. That goes for personal relationships. It goes for anything. It goes for countries. And we have to take that template and use it within our own community when it comes to other people trying to bother us.
But to your point, how you made the kind of the understanding of guns when you were younger. I think, talk about NAAGA, as you spoke about children being comfortable with guns and things like that. I feel like our upbringing was guns are bad. You have the negative idea of it because guns were used for, killings and murders and things like that. A lot of us, we didn't have the opportunity to go hunting with our fathers or to learn about guns and to do all that type of stuff. So I truly believe, it's not individually our fault that we're not comfortable with guns as a community. It's just kind of systemically we didn't really have that opportunity. We couldn't buy guns, slaves couldn't have all of those type of things. So we're already at a disadvantage, and that's why having NAAGA to have these conversations, to continue to get people involved, to know it's okay to have a gun, to know your rights to having a gun. It's all very good. I mean, it's
and let me go to the point you made. I think one of the best ways you can impact a community is at the youth level, because that young person grows into a man or grows into a woman later in life. And if you start instilling positive experiences and positive perspectives with firearms now, and they know the difference between somebody who's doing bad things versus somebody that's being a good person and just taking care of the business, but they like to competitively shoot, they like to hunt, they like to do target practice. Those are good experiences. So I believe forcing information in a very positive way, consistent way to our young folks is the way that you address this, what you talked about. When you and I were both raised, we stayed away from guns because we thought the narrative was, you get by the guns, man, you can get in trouble. But if you give a different narrative saying, hey, guns are okay if you use them in this way or this manner, it turns the whole dynamic around. And that's, I think, one of the things that we're challenged with at NAAGA is to address that narrative that's kind of tilted in one way in our community. It's changing dramatically and very quickly since 2012, but we have a long way to go, a lot of work to do.
So kind of going on to gun violence, may that be, within communities, within any criminal activities or mass shootings that happen. What do you think needs to be done to control these type of situations?
That's a serious question. I'm going to try to give you a serious answer, because we talk about this daily at NAAGA. If we really gonna have a real talk, I'm gonna give you 3 examples, 3 areas that have the same type of systemic problem with gun violence. Compton, South Central LA, South side of Chicago, and the Southwest side of Atlanta. All those areas have a lot of gun violence. A lot. I mean, overly the percentage you would think for the size of the communities. Why is that? I'll tell you why. In each of those communities, you have a group of folks that go through an educational system that is subpar at best. They have confrontational relationships with the police at best. They have no skills leaving high school, and I mean none. Their socialization and interaction with general main society is non-existent. Their mannerisms, their education, their perspective on society is so, I guess, niched to that particular community in which they live. They basically cannot interact and get a job anywhere. So what are you going to do? And just before I say that, on top of all that, by the time you're 22 and 20, 23 and 24, you've got 3 and 4 felonies. So now you're out of the whole job system, employment, and you cannot get any type of income. You know what you're going to do? You're going to do it. You're going to do what anybody would do. You and I would do the same thing. If we have babies to take care of, if we have a wife to take care of and kids, we're going to rob, we're going to steal, we're going to sell drugs, we're going to do whatever it takes because we have no other option. And yes, we're going to use a gun in many cases to get that result done. Is a gun a part of the problem? Absolutely. I'd be lying to you if I said otherwise. But there's systemic reasons why gun violence takes place in the country. Folks don't wake up in the morning saying, you know what, unless you're just an evil person saying, you know what, I don't have any money, so I guess I'm gonna use my gun and kill somebody. I really want to kill somebody to get money. That's because the options are so narrow for a lot of our folks, a lot of our Black brothers in LA or South Side Chicago or in Atlanta, wherever the case may be. They have no options. So let's give them some options. We can take away, I'm telling you right now, tomorrow, whoever's in office could pass legislation that takes every gun out of every home in the United States. And you know what's going to happen the day after? Somebody's going to get shot again. Because when you need to do what you need to do, you're going to get a gun illegally. So that's not the answer. Gun laws are not the answer. It's an attack on the system that's causing people to be using these guns in illegal ways. And I'm not, now when I say that, I'm not addressing your Dylan Roofs or some of these domestic terrorists that are running around. Those are folks that are just diabolically diabolical in their mindset, their morality or lack of morality. That's a different discussion altogether. But your gun violence in Black areas across the country are based on lack of economic opportunity, lack of education, and lack of skills that they can go out and get a job. Just basically being pushed out by society saying, you know what, your pants are sagging, you know, you're grilled out, you got tats all over, you look like you can't integrate into the mainframe of society where you can get income. So we're going to keep you out. And we need to hug those brothers and bring them in and say, look, we do have some opportunities for you. We do have some chances for you to get employment. So that's my answer to your question.
So let's talk. I want to talk mass shootings, but from the perspective of the type of gun that's being used. One, do you agree with the banning of assault rifles, or I believe it's the type of guns that can shoot certain amount of bullets at a certain in a row or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I'll address that first. Let's address the type of gun we're talking about so everybody can get clear on that. When people typically say assault rifles, they get confused with machine guns. Okay. I have several rifles that are deemed assault rifles, or AR-15s or AK-47s. That's the terminology that I use. Now, a semi-automatic gun and an automatic gun are two different things. Semi-automatic means you pull it once, the bullet goes out once, just like a normal rifle, just like a normal pistol. Automatic, fully automatic means that it's like a machine gun. It is a machine gun. You pull it once and as many bullets goes out the magazine as possible. That's a machine gun. I'm against machine guns personally, being like any person with common sense, because that's a different type of weapon. That's used for the war. That's used for engagement in between battles. That's for soldiers. But a semi-automatic gun, I don't have a problem with anyone having, because everybody has a semi-automatic gun. You can pick a Glock, you can pick a SIG, you can pick any type of firearm or rifle, a hunting rifle. That's a semi-automatic gun as well, because you're pulling one time on the trigger and it goes out of the chamber one bullet at a time. People get confused because of the media twisting the information, making the gun seem that it's something that it's not. attaching terms like mass, mass destruction or implementations of war or an object of war. Those are all adjectives that really don't really have an attachment, a real attachment to the gun itself or the rifle itself, because it's just not something that is accurate.
So when we hear, just kind of going from the Second Amendment and I guess uh, I'll say NRA, but let's just say conservatives, or let's just say gun owners, the conversations that are happening in certain administrations, may it be the administration we currently have or the one before, it's this idea that I feel like a lot of gun owners kind of hear, not a lot, I'll just say on the news, the media, a lot of times it's, oh, they want to take away our guns. Do you feel like that's a lot of the conversation that's coming from government? Because for me, again, person that's not, not a gun owner, to me, it doesn't sound like they're trying to take away your guns. It sounds like they're just trying to limit the type of guns that are out there. Is that your understanding, your thought process, or how when those type of conversations happen, how do you feel about
It depends on the conversation, to be quite frank.
it?
But also, more importantly, we have to look at the legislation that's being pushed down to the general public right now, or being proposed. I'll give you an example. Let's look at some of the stuff they're doing now. It's our stuff that's passed the House of Representatives, that's in the Senate right now. It's being seriously considered by the senators there. Are they taking our guns away literally at this stage? No, but they're to me, it's like having a vice, and they're slowly getting it tighter and tighter and tighter. And the eventual goal of a lot of people out there that want guns controlled, they don't want any guns out in public or access, by the public. I think it's very, very dangerous. The laws that they're proposing now, none of those laws will stop any of the mass shootings. Not one, not one. And my question is, okay, if you know the legislation that you have is not going to reduce mass shootings, what's your purpose for presenting the legislation? And the only thing I can think of is for theater to their base.
Right.
Do we need to have background checks? Yes, we do. I'm for background checks. I don't want you to make it seem like I don't want you to I don't want to seem to you or your listeners here thinking that I'm against common practical sense. Backgrounds, we need background checks. I don't, because I have babies just like everyone else. I don't want my maybe running around, or my child be running around and run into someone who should not have a gun. If you've beaten your wife or a violent offender, you don't need to have a gun ever. If you're someone that is emotionally and psychologically unstable, you don't need to have a gun ever, to me. But that's my perspective. So those background checks are for a purpose. If you have a felony, this is where I differ. If you have a violent felony, you don't need to have a gun ever. But if you have a felony because you couldn't feed your babies one time and you had to write some checks, or you were selling drugs as a kid, on the corner, whatever, you need to have the right to have a gun. And that's where I differ from a lot of folks. So some people may disagree, that's fine, but that's my perspective. And I will add this: if you believe that we're all trying to react negatively automatically as gun owners, it might be because we're getting attacked constantly by legislation from all over the country by various folks that want to seemingly try to take their guns. So we have a little scar tissue, to be honest. And we need to sit down, and I'm a big believer in having conversations like you and I are having conversations. I get in arguments every day with a lot of different folks, but at the end of the day, we always shake hands, because I'm a big believer. I'm obligated to listen to you and your journey and how you came to say, hey, you know what? I'm cool. I don't need a gun. I'm good. But as long as in return, you can listen to my story where I say, hey, you know what? I'm good, but I feel a lot better if I have that gun on my hip when I walk out the door. If we can have that conversation and at least be civil and have a sense of respect for one another, that can be the start of something that's even bigger than what we're thinking about as far as coming to some type of compromise. And I think that's very, very important, because I think that skill of just listening has been lost right now. Everything's so polarized. It's so volatile. You say one thing, one way or the other, and it goes up in smoke. But we have to sit down and at the table.
At this point, that literally is people don't know how to communicate with each other.
Oh, they don't. They don't.
You know,
They
it's
don't.
okay for you to disagree. A disagreement doesn't equate to an argument or I dislike
Exactly.
you or whatever
Exactly.
the case may be. If we all were the same, there would be no creativity, there would be nothing.
We
So
have a saying in our organization: we agree to disagree, but not disconnect. And it speaks to what I just talked about. In other words, if we sit down and we have a conversation, you say, Philip, I don't think we should have. I don't think we should have assault rifles or ARs or AKs, whatever your terminology. I'm obligated to listen to you, and because the first thing I'm gonna ask you is that, how'd you come to that? How did you come to that realization for you and your own personal thinking? And you're going to tell me. But in return, as long as you listen to my side of the story and say, hey, I appreciate that, I respect what you're saying, but this is my story. This is why I think it's so important. If we have that, then we can agree to disagree, but not disconnect and walk away. Hey, shake hands and say that's cool. At least we had some common understanding there for a moment. And I think that's a lost art right now.
So, going back to the legislation piece, I read that you all were interested in maybe forming a pack. If you guys were to form a pack, what would be the goal of that pack?
We had a deep executive team conversation ongoing for months at a time about this very topic because it's very it's a different direction for the organization and you're in deep waters.
Mhm.
Politics is a dirty game, man. It's a nasty game, and we have decided after a long conversation we're going to stay apolitical or neutral, however you want to term it,
Yeah.
because right now we have a lot of black Democrats, we got a lot of black Republicans, we got a black libertarians, we got socialists, we got people that don't care. They say, hey, Phil, all I want to do is shoot, don't talk about anything. I just want to go to the range and find some peace and solace in being around my people without having to talk about politics. All that's respected. So we, as an organization, we don't make comments on politics, but what we will do aggressively is make comments about policy as it affects the Second Amendment and our rights as gun owners. Um, and I think that's a healthy way to kind of stay in the middle, respect everybody's own politics, as it may be, and at the same time be able to speak to issues that are important to our organization, which is obviously gun rights.
So let's talk about some of those. Like, what are some of the challenges that your organization and gun owners do face in order to continue to have ownership of their guns?
I think the biggest thing is that we're going to have a different type of gun owner speaking.
Mm.
Too often, and I'm not a racist. I have friends in every spear of every ethnic background you can think of. Especially if they come from California, it's like a melting pot.
Right.
But if you only have the image of a white older male every time, the old white guy, I think you're hurting your chances because the demographics in the future of the country speak otherwise. The country is getting more color. It's getting blacker, browner, and yellower. Asian, Latinos, and African Americans. I believe the best way to have a real honest communication and a fresh perspective is having folks like our organization speak about the Second Amendment, speak about why it's important for we fight for our gun rights for that older single black woman who's living in the ghetto who needs that firearm because somebody might be coming through that door at 3 in the morning. We need to fight. We need to have a fresh perspective. So when we talk to a group of senators and we can speak to examples, vivid examples of saying, this black woman was walking from her office to her car late at night, and four guys tried to jump her. And the only thing that saved her is that she was able to pull out her firearm that she was trained with through NAAGA to save her life. Those are real stories. Those are stories I can speak to. But if it's coming from a black person or an Asian person or Latino, I think at this point it has more credibility, and it goes a lot long. It goes a lot further because we're the fresh face at the table, particularly African Americans. We have never been in this position, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, where we've had this many African American people having guns.
Yeah, I mean,
You've done the research. I mean, have you seen
yeah,
this?
like and I was just actually going to bring up the studies that they were actually saying that African Americans are buying guns at a higher rate than ever before.
Oh,
And
yeah.
a lot of it did start like last year.
Yeah. We had, I think last year, beginning of last year, we had 9 million African Americans that had guns at that time. We probably have not 10 million or 11 million, maybe even 12 million right now that have guns. A lot of folks in our community have bought guns.
Yeah.
Total 9 million people outside of African Americans that bought guns. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of guns.
I have,
So,
I have a quote right here, actually from Jim Kirkorodo, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, Director of
yeah.
Research and Marketing. And he
Yeah.
says highest overall firearms sales increase comes from Black men and women who show a 58.2% increase in purchases during the first 6 months of 2020. And it really is like, I think that 2020, it sparked something. We saw something different. The pandemic was coming in and it really became is
Mhm.
you or me, or that mentality start to happen. Is that kind of your idea, your thoughts, as in like
Yeah.
where
You said it already. The pandemic was the difference maker. There were people that I had arguments for 5 years saying, "Hey, Philip, I respect what you're doing, but I'm not getting a gun ever." I had at least 100 of those folks email me and call me and say, "Philip, what kind of gun should I get when the pandemic hit?" Because that was the first time where their politics didn't matter, their race didn't matter. It was like, if we have social breakdown and I need food, is there a mob that's going to come through here and take what I have because they need to eat? I mean, people were really scared and are still scared now. So they went and they give me a call and say, "Man, what kind of gun should I get?" And I tell them my recommendation, and they go get a gun because that's when reality trumped theory
Yeah.
to me. And the pandemic mixed with the, as you mentioned, the political unrest and the racial tension that combined with some of the realities on law enforcement all together was like a gumbo of stuff making people go out and buy a gun.
Yeah, I looked in. I'm in New York. I was looking at or I'm New York, New Jersey. I was trying to call to get my license and all that type of stuff. I think New York is very, very tough.
Oh yeah, very
To
tough.
get a gun in New York.
Very
So
tough.
just
Very
know
tough.
that when I was looking through the process and all that type of stuff. But yeah, it definitely for me, I was concerned, and to your point, and I never really thought about it until you just said it. We really are at a disadvantage. We're scared of guns because of one, growing up in a certain area, but then
Yeah.
also scared of guns for if you have a gun, you automatically are you black and have a gun. You
Yeah.
automatically are a threat, a criminal, and we've
Correct.
seen that multiple cases, big name cases that have happened to where someone may have pulled out a gun or not even pulled out, showed that they had a gun or let them know they had a gun or whatever the case may be, and it
Yeah.
didn't end well. And I just wanted to say something else to your other point too about having a spokesperson that is different than a typical older white man. That is the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you and this organization. I was like, okay, I want to hear. I know I'm not ignorant. I know that there are black people that own guns. Where are the conversation that's being had as it pertains to people either having guns, gun ownership,
Mhm.
utilizing it properly, the laws, the policies? I want to hear your thoughts because your experience as a black man owning a gun is different than a white man's experience, or can be different. Given the circumstances of how you've grown up and things like that. So
Mhm.
it's truly important, truly important.
Yeah, and to your point, if the worst thing you can do is act like something's not there,
Yeah.
and especially if you're an African American, because ignorance will get you killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a lot of friends that are very, very educated like yourself, very sharp, very on top of the social realities, but they all can tell you one thing: when they walk out that door with that gun, they understand the dual reality there, them versus someone who is not of their color. So they're very conscious of that. So you make a very good point.
What's the I guess the argument that you have or that you may have with people who say, as a black man,
Hmm.
I own a gun, but now I feel like I am a target because if I am in a state that is a carry state and I have it on me,
Hmm.
I'm it's one thing, I'm a threat for being a black man just because I'm big and black.
Right, 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 right.
Now I have a gun on me. I'm afraid. I'm even more afraid because now I do look like a classic threat to non-black people.
Right.
Um, what's your argument to that?
First thing I think about, I literally do this all the time because this is a conversation that is is, I'm not gonna say daily, but almost daily. I take a step back and I think of those that came before me.
Mm-hmm.
I think of Nat Turner. I think of Harriet Tubman. I think of Black folks that died so we can have some freedom, some liberation, some be emancipated. And then I think about us as a people now. We are not sub citizens. We're not some second class American profile of a citizenship. Our folks died for us to be here. To me, we're the most patriotic folks in the in the United States. We fought for this country when we weren't even considered humans.
Humans.
And I'm not. Let's take it there. We were I think 3/5 of a person.
It's of a person.
It takes two of us to make one. you know.
Yep.
So we don't have to apologize to anybody about anything. So the reality is that when one of our people, let's say take Philando Castile, he's a very good example of somebody that was a good guy, job, no criminal record, law abiding, had a license to carry the gun, but yet was gunned down. When something like that's happened, the worst thing we can do as a people, I'm not talking about the merits of the case. The worst thing we can do is to say, oh my God, Philando got shot, man, so I'm gonna put my gun away.
Right.
In fact, the next day I told everybody, make sure you conceal carry. Let's legally, and I wanna make sure I state this carefully so people are listening and they won't interpret it the wrong way. Let's go after that guy legally, that law enforcement officer. And I have a lot of police that are friends of mine that we have discussions about this all the time. So I'm not anti-police or anything like that, but I say go after the person that shot Philando and go after him with every legal means we have. I'm not saying he's a racist. I can't get into his mind. I'm not going to try to. I only can go by what he did. And what he did was to kill an innocent Black man. So he needs to pay for that, be it lack of training or his subjective mindset when it came to dealing with that African American. Because he could have did that a lot differently. He could just said, hey, just be careful. Don't move. You're moving the wrong way. He didn't have to overreact like that. That was total overreaction to me. And I don't have to be a law enforcement officer. I'm a Black man who's 62, who's seen life. I've seen good law enforcement. I've seen good policing. So if somebody tries to paint, well, Phil, you're not a police officer. I don't need to be. I'm a human who has eyes, and I'm a Black man who has eyes, who has been through a lot and has seen a lot. So I would say we need to carry the next day. We need to promote that, hey, we're not going to back down from having our rights because our ancestors fought for us to have that right. And the worst thing we can do is to say, oh my God, we're scared now. We're scared as a people. That's what a lot of people want us to do. So we can continue to be a soft target, getting attacked, getting singled out. So I'm totally against backing down in any way, shape, or form when it comes to that.
So I had a quick question. What's your demographic of the organization right now as it pertains to like the ages? Because I'm in my head when we first, again, thinking about it in the beginning, I'm like, you know, it's probably like 50 plus, you know, maybe interested, maybe 45 plus. But now I wonder if it is younger, and I think it will be younger as you continue to speak on it.
It's changing rapidly. At first it was a bunch of old dogs, I'm not gonna lie. You know, 45, 50, 60, you know. But now we got some young.
45, listen, 45 is not old. And now I have to start saying that as I start to get older.
Did you get closer?
Now it's like, no, 40 is old, 45. I don't know what
40 is cool. But first we had a lot of us, when we first started, we had a lot of old dogs. But now we're getting some young blood, some young minds, some brothers in their 20s. They're like, look, this is how we're gonna roll. This is what we should do, Philip. This is how NAAGA, this is the NAAGA for the next 20 years when I'm long gone. This is what we want to do. That's the difference in our organization. We are attracting everybody, particularly that younger demographic, what I talked about earlier and you're talking about now, that's going to change the trajectory of the organization to a much more powerful, vibrant, robust organization that is not only reactive, but proactive, where we can not only talk about the laws, we can help form the laws. And that's what's happening within NAAGA now. There's kind of a recalibration of the organization on the fly as we grow, because we're growing at a very, very fast rate. And the infusion to our point now is that those young folks, young people, one thing about young people you have to really respect, they're not scared. Yeah. They're fearless. They're not worried about the.
But you know, I said first time. Sometimes it gets them in trouble, but for the most part,
Sometimes, and that's where the old dogs come and say, hold on, this keep going, but watch out for that. We watch, we tell them about the landmines, but that energy, that passion, that intelligence, you got to let them guys go. You got to let them young women go. You can't hold them back and say, don't do that. Let them go. They have the desire, the fire. Let them go, and that's what I think is going to be the defining difference for our organization as we move forward, because we do have those young minds interacting with the old guys like me, and looking down the line, because it's not NAAGA's not about right now. It's about 20 years from now. What do we look like in 20 years? How big are we going to be? What are we going to be doing? What are we not going to be doing? How safe will our community be? So that's my hope, and that's why I'm very optimistic when I look at the organization and how I see the daily and monthly and yearly interaction of the organization within itself and the larger society. So I feel very comfortable.
So, just a couple more questions. Yesterday, I believe yesterday, um, President Biden gave his address about gun control.
Yeah.
His thoughts of what he wants to do and things like that. I want to know. We won't talk about it in its entirety, but I would like to know what either you liked that came out of it, or things that you're a little concerned about from this administration as it pertains to.
Yeah, he had several things. Two things that stuck out in my mind: the red flag laws and the ghost gun.
Okay.
The red flag laws, just for your readers that don't, or your listeners that don't understand, a red flag law basically allows law enforcement to come in to that person's home and take their guns away from them based on them possibly being a danger to society, to a group of people, or an individual, based on their behavior or their projected behavior. Um, to me, that is the most dangerous thing that we can do, or allow to let happen. Red flag laws are very, very dangerous in that it gives power to someone to take your Second Amendment rights away in an instant. And I'll give you a couple examples, just being very pragmatic. Let's say you get an argument with your wife and you're yelling and screaming, and you go to work, but she's pissed off. She gets on the phone. She calls law enforcement saying, my husband's irrational. He's upset, blah, blah, blah. I even got a picture of him on the phone yelling and screaming. Wow. During the argument. You didn't know you were getting recorded. So you come home and you get a knock at the door. It's the police. They're taking your guns away based on irrational behavior, somebody being reported. That's the fear. Or it could be something very subtle. You could be walking, shopping, and someone thinks you are doing something, and they know that you are carrying a gun, and you're in the store, and somebody can say, "Well, this black guy, he's got a yellow hoodie on. He's big and black. He's menacing. I think he's out to hurt us." Next thing you know, you're getting your guns taken away. Those are the dangers of the red flag laws. Just to start. So I'm totally against red flag laws in any way, shape, or form, the way it's presently constructed. Now, the one, and this is my personal, I'm not speaking for NAAGA because I've not spoken to our executive team, but I can say the thing that I don't have as much difficulty with is the ghost guns.
And the ghost guns are when you're able to make
a gun in your home. You can't sell it, but it's your gun for your private use. I would, if there's any piece of legislation that I would be able to say, okay, I can kind of look at this a little closer, that would be it. That's the only one that I have an inkling to say, okay, that makes sense based on the first blush without me going into too much detail. So.
Okay. So thank you for that. So my last question for you is, what can we look forward to from NAAGA?
The organization, I've been blessed, man. I've got probably the best group of people around me on the planet. I have an executive team that has folks that are all very, very accomplished in their own fields before coming to NAAGA. I have a black woman that was the former senior federal prosecutor of the state of Georgia. She's our legal counsel. I've got a gentleman who leads our IT, who's one of the best DBAs or database administrators in the country. He's on our team. I've got another gentleman that works as a corporate trainer for a very large company that's on our team. I have a security consultant. I've got people that do very, very high level stuff. And they said, you know what, Philip, I just want to join your organization. I want to help. So the team, the executive team, myself and our member, because this is a collective decision, it's just not me, has sat down and we have certain things we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to start possibly virtual chapters you'll see in the future, where folks that can't make it to a meeting because they might be a truck driver or they live so far out, there's no other members, but they still want to be connected to the organization. So we're going to have virtual chapters for those folks to kind of bring them in. You're going to see a lot more activity with youth, scholarships, a lot more programs for Black women, because Black women are the backbone of our organization, both not only in symbolism, but they do a lot of work. They're chapter leaders, they're firearms instructors, they're on our executive team, they have true input, they're part of our project teams. So we're going to really try to address those things in the future. And hopefully that combined with a lot of other stuff we're trying to do, leadership conferences and stuff like that, we can get some traction. But I want to make sure I say this before I leave. The one thing NAAGA has been able to do, I think, more than anything, is to develop a culture of acceptance. And that means whoever you are, you're welcome in our organization. I don't care if you're rich, poor, dumb, straight, gay, rich, from a engineer, a doctor, whatever your case may be, you're welcome. We're going to shake your hands. We're going to give you a good hug. We're going to say, welcome, brother. Welcome, sister. Come on in. You can relax. You can be yourself. So hopefully the future has more of that. And I know it will based on my direction on that one. But we have a lot to do. And I think the organization leading force is going to be very, very dominant. We're going to definitely do our thing and make the community proud of us, of the work we're doing.
Perfect. Philip, thank you so much for this. This conversation was very insightful. Everybody, please check out the National African American Gun Association, NAAGA. Definitely get more information, learn about the chapters, learn about the organization. It's definitely, just don't be ignorant. At least be informative. That's all I can ask for people, is just be informed of the conversations that are being had. Government level, state level, local level, federal. Because
do your reading. Always do your reading, man.
Always have to. Thank you, Philip. I appreciate it so much. Talk to you soon.
And God bless. Be safe, man.
Thank you.